Hello and welcome to TackleMaking.com. Of all the questions we're asked, I think the most popular is how do you hold a lure during the painting process? And second to that is how do you dry a lure during the painting process? So I thought what we'd talk about today is how do you build a little tool to hold your lure during painting, and then we'll talk a little bit about how do you build a drying motor to dry the lure during the painting process. So if we start with the tool to hold it, so there's a lot of different theories on this, and if you browse the web, you'll probably see about 50 different suggestions on how to hold a lure. This is the one that was taught to me, and I think this is the best one that I've seen out there. And essentially what you do is go down to your local hardware store and just buy a wooden dowel. You know, something that's maybe a half inch or so in diameter. And what you want to do is cut that into probably about an 8 to 10 inch length. And then you buy some Velcro. Any hardware store sells little Velcro strips. And you take the loop side of the Velcro, the soft side, and you wrap it so that you have about an 1.5 inch long strip of Velcro at one end. And it's maybe about a 1/2 inch up from the back end of the dowel. Then what you'll do is go to the other end of the dowel, and with the drill a little pilot hole, maybe about a 1/2 inch into the dowel. You're then going to take a paneling nail, and that's very important. Any hardware store sells them, but it's a specific type of nail, and you'll see that it has these little ridges on it. That's important because we're actually going to be compression fitting our lures onto this, and those little ridges are going to hold that lure snug against this nail. But you'll take one of those nails, you cut off the head of the nail, the flat end of the nail, and then you're going to glue that into your dowel so that the sharp end of the nail is sticking out. And glue that in with epoxy or even Elmer's glue would probably work. So at the end you have one of these rods, and it's a dowel, you know, about 10 inches long. It's about 1.5 inches worth of wrapped Velcro, the soft side of the Velcro. And then there's a paneling nail glued into the other end. And the way that you use this is if you have a lure that you've made, in this case there's one that I've already painted, but you know, you could use an unpainted lure as well. But you take your unpainted lure and you take your compression fit, you take your holding stick, and what you're going to do is push that into the end of the lure in a spot where you're ultimately going to put a hook. So I know that when this lure is made, I'm going to screw in a hook holder in the back here. I'm probably going to put one, potentially would put one in the belly as well. But I know that there's definitely going to be a screw hole in this position anyway. So I push my nail into that spot. And because it's a paneling nail, I have a really good compression fitting. So I can take this and I could shake it around, bang it against things, and that's not going to fall off. Right? So this is actually how I'll hold my lure during the painting process. If I'm spray painting with an air gun or an airbrush or even a spray paint can, I can hold this and I can spray and I can rotate my lure while I'm spraying, and it's a really quick and easy way to get paint all the way around that. If I'm doing a dipping process where I've got a cup of paint, and I usually do this for the base coat, I can also take this and I can dip that into that cup of paint really easily. And that's how you hold a lure. And you'll keep it like that throughout the entire painting process, and you'll only take it off the stick at the end when you're ready to actually attach your hardware. And what you'll do before you take it off, you'll have some paint build up against the nail and the lure itself, and you just want to take a little penknife and just cut that paint right at that line, and then pop your lure off, and then you already have a pilot hole there that you can put your screw in to hold the hook. So that's how you hold a lure. It's a really convenient way. Let's talk a little bit about the drying motor. So most people, or some people, might actually have a rod drying motor, and that's what this is. You can get it at Cabela's or any of the sporting goods stores sell these really cheap. And what some people will do is they'll go to a yard sale and pick up an old rotisserie motor. But basically, you know, any slow rotating motor would work. You know, maybe anything, you know, 8 RPM, something like that, would work really well. Because you don't want this to be spinning fast. You want it to move slowly, just slow enough that the paint really can't settle in one specific spot on the bait. So this is the motor I got for making fishing rods. And normally you'd put a little rod chuck on the end here, and that would attach to your rod, and it turns slowly and allows the coat of the rod to dry. So you can actually convert this type of motor into a lure motor really easily. And what you want to do is get yourself a wooden block. Cut yourself a little wooden block, I'd say maybe 3/4 of an inch wide to an inch, and then maybe 1.5 inches high, and maybe you know, 1/2 inch deep, something like that. And so you have just this rectangle piece of wood. And then at the hardware store, go and get one of these set screws. You want it to be at least as tall as your block is. And then you take the other piece of your Velcro, the hook side, kind of the coarse side, the sharper side, and you want to glue that to at least 3 sides of this block of wood. So you can see here I have Velcro here, have Velcro here, Velcro glued here. And then what you want to do is take a drill bit that's the same diameter as your motor, and you're going to drill a hole in here that can at least accept the length of your motor, this turning portion of the motor. And so you're going to drill that hole directly into the end of this block of wood. And then you want to come in the side and you want to drill a hole that's a little bit smaller than your screw. But the goal of this is to get a hole that goes in and intersects with this hole that you've drilled. So once that's there, you'll take your set screw and screw that in, and you want to screw it in to the point where the screw is actually visible through this hole in the front. And that way you know that your hole is positioned correctly. And what this is going to do is, on your motor, there's actually a flat side to the motor. And that flat side is used to anchor something against the motor as it's rotating so that it doesn't slip on this part of the motor. So once you've built that, you take that and you insert it over the end of your motor so that that flat point is pointing at your screw. You'll put that on there and then tighten up your screw to hold it in place. And now you've got a really good tool for holding your lures while they dry. So I'm going to step away for a second. I'm going to plug this in and we can see this rotating, and I'll show you what it looks like with the lure on it. So there you have it. I just turned on the motor. The motor is now rotating, and you can see my little block is turning. So now, as we're painting our lures, remember we put this Velcro portion on one end of our stick. On the other end of the stick I have my actual lure. So what I want to do is, as I'm painting it, when I get to a point where it's ready to dry, I can just stick that right up against there, and you'll see it'll rotate my lure while it dries. And that rotation keeps the paint on the lure moving so that it dries in a clear way and doesn't end up with bubbles or bunched up spots. Right now, because it's up on this platform, I have it sticking out horizontally. You could just as easily, if you have this hanging off the side of a workbench, attach it like this, and that would rotate around and give you more space actually. So you could fit more fishing lures on one block of wood. You could line them up like so, like one like this, one here, you know, one on each side, and basically make use of the full set of Velcro that's on that. So that's how you make a simple drawing motor for fishing lures, and that's how you make the holding tool for fishing lures. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to go to tacklemaking.com and ask them. We actually have an article on this on the site as well. I hope that helps. Bye-bye.